I want to be there for my boys, whatever they're into.
I have some shame personally about that, like looking back for myself. A lot of times when a child and a parent reconnect later in life on something that happened earlier in life, the parent's like, that impacted you? I don't even remember that.
Or that's not the way it happened.
Or it's the reverse
Yeah,
or
right.
whatever, but it's the reconnection years later about things that either did or didn't impact.
I remember feeling unseen. I remember feeling misunderstood and also not celebrated in this thing that I was really, really excited about. My sons love their dad so much, and they definitely love to make him proud, and it's such a thing for kids to be witnessed and celebrated by their dads.
I think that is one of the coolest things in a partnership is when one spouse can really see the other.
What am I showing my boys every day by my actions? When there's incongruency of what you're saying and what you're doing, kids tend to go with what they're seeing.
We don't really know how they're going to interpret who we're being.
That phrase both inspires me and terrifies me. Jenna and Brad, welcome to the show. This is going to be fun. I want to start with your childhood, each of you, which I have never explored with you in depth. So this is going to be fun for me as much as it is for everybody else getting to know you. And my quick context for the listeners will be that we live near each other, we're friends, our families have hung out, and we are in the process of doing life together, which is beautiful. I get a chance to see you in your element now and how you shine, leading in your companies, leading in the community, how you celebrate, and how you mom and dad, which is fantastic. But I don't know how you were, treated by your parents, specifically your dad. And when we first started the show, I didn't really go there a lot with people, but I've recognized later, as we are approaching nearly 500 episodes now, that there's so much wisdom in learning like what your dads did right or didn't do right. And sometimes I don't know when I talk with guests, and I don't know this with you two either, of whether your dads were world class or totally not existent. But let's explore and talk about, the warnings and examples from that. So Jenna, I'd love to go to you first, and maybe the open-end question of tell me about your dad, anywhere you want to take that.
Thank you for having us here. First of all, I love you so much. And what a beautiful acknowledgement of who we are. And obviously it's a reflection of who you are. And so cool that we get to do life together. So I'm just thrilled that we get to be here in your space and have this really powerful and potent conversation. My dad was a ski bum, like a ski instructor, super, super simple man.
Yeah.
Wanted to have a never summer. He lived in a little tiny town called Bear Valley, which is where I'm originally from, population 300. And during our summer, he lived in Thredbo, Australia, because they had snow down there, and he was a ski instructor down there. And my mom was a model, and she flew to Australia for a photo shoot, and she had to learn how to ski for the photo shoot. And she met my dad. My dad was her ski instructor, and they fell in love.
No way.
They got married 6 weeks later, and my mom completely said goodbye to Studio 54 and limousines and Fashion Week and all of that for love. And she moved into this tiny town in the middle of nowhere, like this beautiful gem in the mountains, and chopped wood and dug tunnels, like, because it would snow like 20 feet. So, my mom, she roughed it. And so they got pregnant with me right away. And I always joke that it's like, you guys got married because you got pregnant with me. But I came in, my mom didn't think she could get pregnant, but I was really clear that I was coming and I had a mission. So it was just really beautiful to see the contrast in my parents. So my dad was very simple. My mom always wanted more. She was always striving for more, build more, create more, manifest more, attract more, cause more, generate more. And my dad was just super simple. And I think that was a really big sticking point for my parents. They stuck it out for 17 years. And, watching my dad he's so generous with his time. My dad would always say to me, the most generous thing you can give to anyone is your time. And my dad's an incredible listener, very disciplinary. He had a really, really, really intense temper. And so I think that was also the big contrast is my mom didn't. She really tried to discipline us, but my dad was definitely the firmer one. He spanked me so hard one time, I'll never forget it for the rest of my life. And I remember there was a period of time where I was actually afraid of my dad. And
how old were you when he spanked you?
I must have been. I mean, I probably deserved it. Honestly, I was I was being a little brat, just like zero respect. I rolled my eyes at my mom. And to set some context, to be fair, my parents were going through a really hard time financially, and I asked my mom to buy me a new pair of shoes, and she's like, "You have these shoes," and she's like, "Go get your shoes," and I picked them up and I rolled my eyes at my mom. And my dad snapped and just chased me up the stairs and spanked me. But my dad came from extreme poverty, and that was a soft spot for him, and so his mom worked so hard. I mean, they literally lived in a hotel room, and she cleaned all these hotel rooms just to be able to provide food, but the only food that they would have is when they would eat mac and cheese every single day. So there's just a lot of scarcity and poverty, and a lot of things that I picked up on from my dad that I dedicated my life to overcoming and breaking that generational chain. But he's so simple, and I think there's a lot of peace in that too. He's so easy to please, yet he's also incredibly stubborn. But I think that the trauma of my parents' divorce really shifted him, and he had a pretty big wake up call. And
how old were you when that happened?
I was 16 when they got divorced, and it was challenging because it was very soon after that, my mom fell in love with my now stepdad, and that was really challenging for the whole family. But I love my stepdad, and it's pretty extraordinary because my whole family has been through Ascension Leadership Academy, and because of the work that they've all done, they spend holidays together. I mean, they literally hang out. They're friends, which is really cool. I mean, we just went back for my mom's 70th birthday, and my dad was there. Of course, my stepdad was there, and we were just hanging out and just having a great time. So it's been a lot of work. You know, we've as a family have really been committed to establishing this modern blended family. And, you know, my mom is friends with my dad's girlfriend, and it's just a really beautiful environment. And, but I learned a lot from my dad about just really how to be a giver. And he was just so generous and just really showed up for people in a lot of ways. So that was something that I'll always take from my dad.
Mm-hmm. When you think of a moment where you felt most loved by your dad, what comes to mind?
I would say there was a my mom's gonna hate this story. I had a school play. I was in a school play, and I get on stage, and it's like a Smokey the Bear play, and just educating the whole school on fire safety. And I was a reindeer, and I have my little antlers on, and I come out on stage, and I look out in the crowd, and I look for my mom, and I don't see my mom, but I see my dad. I don't see my mom. And I remember having this feeling of my dad's here. I felt very loved by him. But I went behind this big, huge cardboard tree, and one of the other cast members was back there, and I start crying. I'm like, my mom's not in the crowd. And it was just such a specific, monumental moment for me at that point where and it took me a lot of years and a lot of work to actually not be pinged by that, and just a childhood traumatic moment for me.
Sure.
But really, like, I felt very supported by my dad, and just anytime my dad would cheer for me if I was playing a sport, even though I didn't want to play sports, I played sports to basically make my dad happy because he was an athlete. He was an extraordinary athlete. Didn't want to play sports, but I did it for my dad's approval, and because I was never a starting player, I just got to have the self-fulfilling prophecy of I'm never going to be enough for my dad no matter what I do. And so then I became an overachiever, and there's that whole other story. But
so much self-awareness now.
Yeah, right. I'm just following the breadcrumbs, looking back. But I'm grateful for all of that. Like I'm grateful for and then there was also this belief in that I generated this story based upon no facts. My dad never said, I really wish you'd been a son, because I was the firstborn. And so I made up this story that my dad had always wished that I'd been a son. And I tried to be this tomboy that I absolutely was not. And decided when I was 16 that I would never change my last name when I got married. But I added it on, so I'm Jenna Ballard. But I just wanted to carry on my dad's legacy.
Yeah.
And to be this masculine, energetic force that I was not meant to be.
You just decided this. Like you said,
Yeah.
he never said to you, that directly. I wish you were my.
It was totally just my made up. Well, I'll tell you, because I used to, my dad would always he'd go play basketball every Thursday night with his guy friends. And so all the kids of the basketball players, it was like, kind of like a league thing. And then we'd all just watch our dads play and we'd just like hang out and do the thing. And my dad was just an athlete. Like he literally coached Olympian skiers. Like he's an extraordinary athlete. And so he was the coach of everything. Soccer. Oh, this is actually the event. I can't believe I almost forgot about this. Maybe I programmed it out of my mind. I was 7 playing soccer, and a moment where I felt very unloved by my dad. I was out on the soccer field. The game was happening, but I wasn't intentionally kicking. I wasn't going after the ball. I was just out there and just kind of existing on the soccer field. My dad pulls me off. He's my coach. He pulls me off the field, and he's like this big booming presence of a man. Like he's just my hero, this gigantic giant of my dad. And he's looking down at me and he says, "What are you doing out there?" He's like, "You're not even trying to score." He's like, "I should just pull you off the field." And I will never forget the feeling of, I'm not good at sports. I will never be good at sports because I don't practice in the off season. I really don't care about sports. But I'm going to keep showing up and just going through the motions of it, but I'll never be good. I'll never be a starting player. I'm never going to be good at that. So all throughout my life, I just found other ways to fulfill my worth through my doingness and through my results. And then of course I discovered in a very painful way that that's not the way to do it. But yeah, just really grateful for all of that, because it really put me on the path that I'm on today.
How old were you when he had this conversation with you about pulling you off the field?
7. I think I was 7 years old.
Yeah.
And it was right after I was sexually abused. I was 6 years old when that happened. So there was a lot of conversations of I don't matter, I'm not worthy, just a lot of self-doubt and a lot of fear in my beingness, and fearful to be fully self-expressed, because my secret desire was to be a singer, to be a performer. And that's what I always really wanted to be.
Wow.
So I put that to the side, because I'm like, well, my dad's never going to approve of that. Because my dad, his father was a musician, and he had a lot of pain around that story. So played stand-up bass for Frank Sinatra. So there's a lot of family stuff that had me make different choices for my life. So.
Wow. Well, I want to first say that I'm sorry that happened to you. That makes me sad, and I'm heartbroken to hear that. Also know you now, that I imagine that all of these life experiences for you have ultimately ended up serving you and contributed to your mission.
Thank you for that. And you're absolutely correct. And I just deeply feel your heart, and I appreciate that. I'm clear now that it's part of my story and my purpose. And I found ways to turn that pain into that. So thank you for your love.
What would you say to the men listening are raising their girl dads, they're raising women? What would you say to them? Either, hey, fellas, do this, or don't do this, based on your experience?
I would say that based on my experience, I think what would have really supported me is for my parents to have figured out a way to be stewards of my own unique gifts and my own greatness, because I think, I'll never forget the moment where I wrote some songs with a couple friends of mine. We're going to start a band called The Burning Logs. And we lived in a mountain town, so that made sense, very on brand,
Okay,
But I came to my parents and said, I want to be in a band, and I want to be a musician, and listen to these songs that I wrote. And the way that and from full responsibility at the age of 6 or 7, however old I was, I came to them at a time when they were super busy and trying to cook dinner. And it was not the ideal environment for them to be so acknowledging of what I created. But I remember feeling unseen. I remember feeling misunderstood, and also not celebrated in this thing that I was really, really excited about. So I remember in that moment, I made the decision to not go all in on becoming a singer or a performer or a dancer or whatever. That's really, really where I wanted to direct my energy. And did we have the resources? Maybe. We lived in a mountain town. We could have made it happen. Of course, if you're committed to something, you can always find a way. But yeah, I think that if I had at that phase of my life been seen and celebrated and encouraged and acknowledged for the things that really excited me, that I really wanted to focus my energy on, I think it would have supported me in developing a different story, because my dad insisted that I played sports. And he said, you absolutely get to play sports. And I understand why. I mean, to really establish that level of discipline and practice and team and all of that, I think those are really important things and aspects of being a kid. But I think that especially for girl dads, to really also empower them. I mean, I wish that I had some understanding in advance about what to do if someone ever touches me in a way that's inappropriate.
You're not like most men. You don't just scroll, you study. You don't just parent, you lead. And you don't just read, you implement. And that's why we made this, a no-fluff, battle-tested list of books that sharpen men like you. Picked by our tribe, proven in real life, these books are gonna stretch your mind, fuel your growth, and challenge who you thought you had to be. These aren't just great reads. They're tools to help you grow as a father, husband, and a man. Get the list and all the insights that bring it to life at frontrowdads.com/books.
I think that having that conversation with our kids can be really scary and uncomfortable, and we don't want to put that thought in their head because they can't quite understand it yet. But if I'd had some awareness prior to that happening, I would have known what to do in the moment, because it was a little boy in my first grade class. I mean, it was literally happened in the classroom, and I didn't know what to do. I was completely frozen and I didn't know what to make of what was actually taking place. So I think that it's important to especially for those of you who are girl dads, to really just empower them and give them some kind of an outlet where they can know how to fight back if that's ever a thing.
Yeah.
Because it happens. Sexual trauma is not some random stranger. It's oftentimes with people that they trust.
Sure.
And also to have the conversation of, we don't get to have secrets in this family, and you can always tell me. If anyone ever says, don't tell me, make sure that you tell me. You can tell me. And I this is a conversation I have every single day with my son, Jax. It's honestly one of my biggest fears, is that he's ever in a position where that's compromised.
Right.
So, in just a very kind of figuring it out as I go way, just letting my son know that he never ever has to be afraid of telling me something, that he'll never get in trouble for telling the truth.
Yeah. Tatiana brought something to me recently that she had seen, perhaps it even circled in our peer group, but it was Gabor Maté talking with a woman about some trauma that she had experienced. And she said this was the moment of the trauma. And he said, actually, the trauma happened, but you didn't have anybody to talk to. And the real trauma occurred prior, when you decided that you didn't have anybody to bring these challenges to. And I thought that was just a very fascinating way of looking at like where the trauma actually started for that person, but not having anybody to talk to for some people, and their experience of that, having to shoulder that or hold that is traumatic.
I think that's really
not
really
being
powerful.
Able to process it.
Yeah, because I think back, what dynamic about my family had me feel like I couldn't share that.
Sure.
I think that it was just such a strange thing to have experienced. I honestly didn't know what to make of it.
Exactly.
I didn't have the faculty to think, oh, that was a really bad thing that happened.
Exactly.
Because I couldn't even name it that, because it was such a strange thing that I'd experienced.
Right.
I didn't understand what it was. It was just very confusing. And so I think that and my parents never had those kinds of conversations with me. Yeah. So I think that for those of you who are girl dads, I invite you to be willing to have those conversations, or have your baby mama, your wife, your ex, whoever is the mother of your daughter, have that conversation with her too.
Yeah. Well, on the note of awesome dads, let's talk about the handsome fella to your right.
The handsomest.
And let's talk about what you love about him as a father. What do you see that you admire and respect, and Yeah, what makes this dude such a great man, great father?
I love this question. I love this question because my love language is words of acknowledgement. So I love to love my husband this way. What I love about Brad and the way that he dads, he's first of all, he's so funny. He's so clever and witty and just so quick. And I love to watch him be super playful with the boys and also be firm, because he really is. He's definitely more disciplinary than I am. We have very different styles of parenting, but we also have very shared values as well. I love to watch him be in his little boy with our little boys.
Who are how old now, by the way? Just
almost 3 and 5.
Okay, great.
Yes. So we have a 3-nager at home, and that's fun.
Yeah.
Full expression this morning.
Yes. Oh my, it's a constant practice in just tending to my nervous system with this one. But I love to watch Brad be his little boy with our boys. And and Brad is a phenomenal soccer player. Like he played soccer his entire life.
Yeah,
and he's got some quick moves. Like still, even to this day, even though he's like my knees, but he still can kick a ball like it's nobody's business. But I love watching him play with the boys and invite them and encourage them. And we're also really present too. I think probably because of my experience of not really wanting to play sports, we've also not been pushing it on our boys or forcing it on them. We're just we're trying different things. Like is it art that you want to get into? Is it dancing? Is it singing? We're really letting him kind of figure that out. Mm-hmm. But I love just watching him be a dad. Mm-hmm. You know, I totally stalk him all the time. Like when we're out and about doing things and we're having just family night or family day or whatever, I just literally stalk my husband and watch him just be a dad. And it's the best. It's the sexiest thing ever. But my sons love their dad so much. And they definitely love to make him proud, and Dad, watch this, look at this, look what I did. And it's just the cutest thing. I think that it's such a thing for kids to be witnessed and celebrated by their dads. And I think that every child wants that.
Mm-hmm. It's really a beautiful acknowledgement.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
I think that is one of the coolest things in a partnership is when one spouse can really see the other. And that's been a theme a little bit in what you've shared of pain of not being seen in any given moment, and the joy of like your dad showing up for that, concert for you and just being there. That's really the spirit of front row dads. The idea of being in the front row, of being engaged and showing up. Arguably the most important thing. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things that you can talk about with fatherhood that are so important, and we can get into all of them, and yet the primary one is be there, right?
Yes.
To show up, because you will bring your traumas and your hurts and your imperfections as a man, and you will say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing. But if you keep showing up, that is a good starting place, because then you can work with that. But if you're not there, it's really difficult to get it right. Yeah. So thank you for acknowledging Brad. Brad, let's talk a little bit about your childhood. Tell me about your dad. I don't know much about your relationship.
Yeah. So I had a great relationship with my dad growing up. I grew up right outside of Des Moines, Iowa. And it was a town of about 2,000 people. And
both small towns.
Yeah. I thought I was in the small town. She was like 300. So we got trumped. But so my dad owned a scuba diving shop growing up.
You guys have fascinating dads.
Yeah.
Really
and
cool.
it's always, I always kind of get the same reaction when people are like, Des Moines, Iowa, scuba diving.
Yeah.
But that was the genius, and I learned this a lot from my dad. So my dad had a shop, and he would sell his clients all the gear and then certify them to dive. And so if you're in the middle of Des Moines, Iowa, and you can certify and you've got all the gear, what do you want to do? You want to go on trips. So my dad was effectively like a travel agency.
That's cool.
And the internet would have crushed it at this point, but that was his business. And what was really great was because of the dive trips, I got exposed to the world very, very early.
That's cool.
And, it was never like a conscious conversation about gratitude and about what I was able to have as a young child versus the rest of the world when they were not. The places that we would go, these resorts, they were incredible. But because I was a young boy at the time, I would travel with him probably 5, 6, 7, started going on these trips with him. It seemed like there was always the help that was supporting the group, travelers and that. But they would always bring their kids with, and because I'm 6, I want to be with other 6-year-olds. So I got to see and play with kids from all around the world. But then I started noticing things like, oh, I have a soccer ball, they don't. I have shoes, they don't. And it started just to kind of teach me about gratitude and the way of the world of what it was doing. So for that, super grateful for my dad. My dad was one of the guys, I played sports, and my dad fostered that very, very well.
Soccer, apparently.
Yeah, yep. And my fondest memories of my dad were in the backyard. We would play soccer constantly. And I didn't really appreciate it until I became a father, but just him countless hours in the backyard with me, and always made me feel like, I'm sure he was letting me win, but I didn't realize that till I got older. Because the concept of an 8-year-old just beating my dad in soccer, I mean, I had a pretty healthy of opinion and confidence, but just looking back, I was like, maybe I wasn't as good as what I thought it was, but just him being there over and over and over, and it was really interesting.
But I want to interrupt because you were like number 1 in the state, so like let's just be clear, you were really good.
Might have actually been beaten.
I was good. Yes, I was.
You were really good.
If anybody knows anything about soccer in Iowa, it's a small pool, but
he's humble. But
it was his consistency. And to speaking of my skill and my jump, John, one thing that we talk about is like you pouring into your sons, like consciously making a conscious decision, like I'm going to pour into my son right now in this period. And I remember distinctly, I was 10 years old, and it's Iowa, so there's not outdoor soccer, and indoor soccer wasn't really a thing yet. We had a basement, and it was unfinished. But one winter, we set up cones, and every night we were dribbling in and out of cones, just playing just over and over and over. And I remember coming out in the spring and distinctly remembering being like, I am so much better than everyone else. And it was because I've been putting in the reps, and my dad just supporting me in that over and over and over. And that support framed and supported me through college, and led me to be a soccer coach after I played. And that is something that I've really it imparted upon me. I want to be there for my boys, whatever they're into. How can I help them practice? How can I support them in whatever they're doing, and just be there for them, because it made such a big difference in my life.
Yeah, I want to acknowledge your dad for showing up in that way, because as now a 49-year-old who has a 15-year-old and a 10-year-old, I can look back over the years and think of many nights that I was so exhausted from work that the idea of even going in the backyard and kicking the soccer ball around with them felt exhausting to me. And I would have much rather probably like grabbed a glass of wine and, tended to myself versus played with them. And I have some shame personally about that, like looking back for myself. And so I share that from 2 perspectives for the guys that are listening. One is the power of like what you experienced was a dad who did show up and play with you. And then also the regret of a dad who's a little bit down the road, not quite done with my journey yet, from the 0 to 18 realm. But that I've recognized the importance more and more and more over the years, because I've seen myself not do that. I've seen myself check out. And I try to have grace for myself, but that is what, so I have much more respect for a man that does that repeatedly over and over again. Like you said, it just felt like hours that he would do that.
Yeah, for sure.
And for me, sometimes that's tough.
Yeah. I think, what on that note, I try to remember, I don't remember being bad at soccer, and I don't remember being like bad at skiing and all these things, but because I was young. But I think about now when both our boys are trying out sports for the first time, and they're not good, because they're learning and they're beginning of it. And the patience
You have to be patient.
that must have been there for my father, who is not a patient man. That is that is something I did not get from him, was patience, but clearly he was, because he was there for me at the point to build the foundation of all these skills of athleticism and those types of things. That is reminders of like, when I'm watching my boys and they're struggling with it, and you're just like, all right, quit picking up the ball. Just no hands. We're only kicking, doing those things, and just be like, oh, yeah, dad was there for these moments too. It wasn't always just fun in the backyard with the son.
What were some, maybe another habit or routine or ritual do you remember from childhood that stood out, that was maybe even something you want to bring into your family as dad?
Well, one of the biggest things that is a steady reminder is more is caught than taught. Because my dad, when he started his dive shop, he was in partnership with his business partner who tried to burn the business down so he could collect insurance money.
Like literally.
Like arson. And it was determined that it was not an accident. And my dad basically, he didn't have any back doors. So he made the business happen, to incurred all the debt, was going with it, and went forward. So there was the fear that come along with entrepreneurism, that this can happen, these bad things. There's a lot of risk involved, and one thing can change everything. So my dad, being an entrepreneur, his message to me was always go to school, study hard, get good grades, and then get into a good company which you can grow with and really, climb the ladder.
As an entrepreneur, he would encourage you to do that. It's interesting. Okay.
So I saw that on one side. My mom, on the other side, she started working for Wells Fargo at 19, and then in her 60s, retired. It's the only place she ever worked. It was Norwest Bank at the time, and then it was bought by Wells. But that was it. So, and I saw her get passed over for promotions. I saw her just the hours that she was working on this. So at one side, both of them saying, go to school, get a good job. But at one side, I see my mom, who had a good job with the big company, get passed over, working all these hours, not getting paid a whole lot. And I see my dad, who's always in my soccer games, taking me on trips all around the world, seems to be like living this adventurous life that to, an 8, 9, 10-year-old, I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. Got to go on airplanes for the first time, got to see a beach, all of these things. And I was like, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
So despite my dad just saying, do this, do this, do this, what I was seeing him do is what
not taught. Yeah.
So, it's really that embedded early in me is like, what am I showing my kids? What am I showing my boys every day by my actions? And that's something that we really try to do by bringing them to work, showing them what mommy and daddy do, showing them that we're teachers on this, so that they get a feel of truly who we are. Because, I would like to think that they're remembering what we're saying, and the things I say are going to part on them. But I learn differently, and I've seen countless examples of also, like, when there's incongruency of what you're saying and what you're doing, kids tend to go with what they're seeing.
That phrase both inspires me and terrifies me.
Right?
Caught, not taught.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and also my own awareness around like who I've been, which many things I'm proud of, many things I'm not. And also all the blind spots. Because a lot of times when a child and a parent reconnect later in life on something that happened earlier in life, the parent's like, that impacted you? I don't even remember that.
Or that's not the way it happened.
Or it's the reverse whatever. But it's the reconnection years later about things that either did or didn't impact. Like, I thought when I yelled at you that one time, that scarred you forever. The kid's like, I don't even remember when you yelled at me. But this one time when you didn't show up for my play, that crushed me. And I determined that this is who you were and this is who I was. And you didn't even realize it until 20 or 30 years later. Fascinating stuff. Yeah. Where did you feel most loved? Were there things that your father said, or in what ways was it, physical touch, acts of service, gifts, specific love?
Quality time. With him when we were playing sports, that was our bond. And it was as I got older and was starting to grow and being all that, it was also our point of, when the son challenges dad for the throne.
Yeah.
And I will remember that moment, that exact moment.
Tell me about it. What moment was that?
I was 16 or 17. And at this point I'd started to grow. I'd started to grow into my man body, and was playing sports at a very, very high level. Was one of the best in the States in this. So when we were now our backyard games, it was getting to the point where I'd far surpassed my dad. And at one point, we were playing in the backyard and there was a loose ball, and he put his weight into me to win this. And I was like, okay, hyper competitive. And so is my dad. So I didn't let that go and got it back. And then I just started toying with him and really just being an absolute dick, being 16, 17-year-old boy in all his bravado, and was teasing him effectively with the ball, and just was that. And I remember there was a loose ball, and we both went into each other and we squared up. Yeah. And I was mocking him in that moment. He should have slapped the shit out of me for what I was doing. And he didn't. And he just turned around and walked inside. And I think about that moment now as a father, because A, karma, but B, it's a rite of passage. And all of our friends, we all have that moment when you're a boy and you're naturally finding your pecking order, and dad is on top of that. And his example in that moment of just patience and being the bigger man in that, when a boy was acting much like a boy.
I find it fascinating that you mentioned that he maybe didn't have patience wasn't his strongest virtue, but yet some of which is some of the best moments are when he was patient. Yeah. It's very interesting.
Yeah. And it's, it's something that I see his patience and lack of patience. It's something I recognize in myself.
And sometimes when it's really a weakness for us, like for me, it's my temper, right? It's like, because I work so hard to be nice and loving and kind. And some of that involves me like holding down. So when I do let it go, it's like, it's big. And so my kids might have described me when they grow up as like, my dad got angry. He got really angry. And yet on the other hand, they're probably going to have a lot of moments when I was like super forgiving and not angry because I was working at it, and those were my moments of great effort. And those were moments when I was patting myself on my back and I'm like, I did it. I that's exactly who the man is that I want to be. Because sometimes my trauma shows up, or my whatever patterns, mine or generations. But yeah.
I think that the way, though, that in my experience of you, the way that you dad, you are so intentional. I've always experienced you as being highly intentional, wanting to always do your best, because, I mean, the truth is we're going to, quote unquote, traumatize our kids in some capacity. Sure. I mean, through our actions, our not being present, forgetting to cut the crust off their sandwich, and the story they make up about that, or we don't really know how they're going to interpret who we're being. So I see how much dedication you've put into you being the best dad that you can be, and then therefore standing for other dads to also be that. And it's something that I admire greatly in you, in the way that you dad and the community that you've built.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, I do already have many regrets. And yet I don't think that I'll have the regret of like not trying or being intentional with my efforts. I think I'll give myself an A on that. Execution, sometimes I fail, sometimes more than I want to. But yes, thank you, Jenna. I appreciate that so much. That means a lot. I want to earn that comment over time. And so thank you. Yeah, I wrote a letter to Tiger a week ago. I maybe wrote this letter. It was a 2-page letter, and I took him out to dinner and we sat down and I read him the letter. And those are moments where I feel like I'm doing good. I'm pushing in, I'm leaning in, I'm engaging, I'm showing up, having the hard conversations. But yeah, it's been fun.
It's beautiful.
It's fun. Yeah, he's taller than me now, by the way.
Wild.
It's so crazy.
What a trip.
It's so crazy. Yeah.
Well, and what I love is, there's a saying that someone would pass on is like, remember, you're raising men. You're not raising boys.
That's right.
And what I've always appreciated about you, in the way that specifically with Tiger, is just the young man that he is, and the way that you relate to him. as a young man who's still figuring it out and figuring out the way of the world of how to be a man in this world, you've always talked to him like a man
That's
and as
true,
a friend,
yeah.
and given him lessons from both sides. And I've witnessed it with both your boys and seeing when they're having hard times and being compassionate with them, but also showing them like, this is the way of the world. This is how a man is going to be thinking about these things. And here's how we're going to react and how we're not going to react in these moments. And it's something that, I've always respected about the way that you father. And it's something that I'm trying to find that balance of and for me, it's the other side is remembering, okay, they're 5 and almost 3. They're not men quite yet. Let's let them be boys in these moments.
Season,
yeah. But yeah, it's awesome having you as an example of that, but finding that balance of who are we raising here in these moments and what can I do in those moments to support them and give them the foundations that are going to help them succeed in life.
Yeah, so true. Yeah. Let's talk about any habits and rituals that you have as a dad right now that you're proud of. Things that you do with your boys, morning routines, bedtime routines, things you say to them or read to them. Like, where do you feel you're just knocking out of the park right now?
Yeah. Supporting in our night routine. I love the moment that I have. I usually I spend the night. I take Jax to bed, our oldest, and Jenna takes Jet to bed, and then we swap. But in the moments I get to read with Jax and just pouring into him and watching him figuring out reading and just seeing his lights turn on as he's doing and supporting him in that, because he can be really, really self-critical of himself. So learning how to read is like the perfect tool if you wanted to be self-critical about knowing something or not knowing something. So, just supporting him, and it gives me an opportunity to constantly reinforce that he's doing a good job, that he's practicing, and that we practice and you can't fail unless you quit, and having him do that and acknowledging him. And then it's really important to me that he knows that if he had a good day or a bad day, or if, dad was angry or something on that I love him. And, I tell him before he goes to bed every night, I said, Daddy loves you. Daddy's proud of you. And I want that to be ingrained in him. And to be the only voice.
What's so sweet about that, though, is he says it, Daddy's proud of you. Yeah. So it's like, it's so ingrained in him that he's always, from as long as he's been alive, what he said to Jax is, Daddy loves you, Daddy's proud of you. And so Jax will say it with him, like he'll say, Daddy loves you, and he goes, Daddy's proud of you. It's just it's the sweetest thing. Like, cool. and it's their thing. It's like he doesn't say that same thing to Jet because they have their own special connection, but the way that it's such a sweet thing that I witness you two have.
Yeah, we have our thing, and then when we drop them off at school, we've always said mantras to our kids when we go to school. And, it's...
What? You two believe mantras?
Yeah. It's weird.
We dabble with mantras.
Yeah. And
we'll get to that in a little bit.
Whatever's been supporting him at that season in his life. And this one, it's staying with groups and being a leader, finding the balance of being independent and being with that. So, he's in a season right now where I ask him, like, who are you going to be today? And he said, a leader. And I go, that's right. What's a leader doing? He says, stays with the group and also follows directions. And I was like, great. So, just embedding those things and seeing how those seeds play out has been a moment of pride that I've seen with that. And then our youngest, it's just in the moments, just tickling the hell out of him and just being loving with him.
So cute.
It's just there. As you know,
sometimes dad advice is like, it's like that. People think it's going to be really
deep.
Tickle the shit out of him, man. Tickle the shit out of him. I can't take it. That's the best thing you can do as a dad.
And our youngest, that's all he wants. He just wants to be roughhouse. He wants to play.
He's a little tornado.
I can't believe how much kids want this at times.
Yeah.
Ocean will sometimes be like, let's play Tickle Monster. I'm like, haven't we played that a lot in your life? It's the same game. Yeah. I throw you on the bed. I tickle you, try to get away. Like, is there a more advanced
and then they go down.
You want to play?
All right,
like, no. And then we play for 10 minutes and he's like, I'm like, okay, that was good. And he's like, more. And I'm like, wow, how could you want more of that?
It's like they hate, love it. It's so funny.
So stop. Wild. All right, do it again. Stop. No, stop. Do it
so
again.
wild.
It's great.
Oh,
and just to hear him giggle is great.
Something I want to mention to the guys that are listening, and by the way, we have a good portion of our listeners that are women too, is that when you, especially with families with younger kids. When you talked about reading, right? And I just want to mention this because Ocean at 10 had like a quantum leap in his reading this year. Now, if you lined up 10,000 10-year-olds, he would have probably been not as accomplished as a reader as the other, the average, right? He would have probably been struggling a bit. And yet, Tatiana and I would always just say, like, when he's ready, it's going to come fast. We noticed that with Tiger too, with math. It was like struggle, struggle, struggle. And then all of a sudden, like, he caught up to math in like 30 days. And Ocean's ability to read has like tripled in the last 60 days. Like tripled. Like just hockey stick growth. And I share that because for anybody out there listening and wherever your kids are in their journey, just remember sometimes you're like, I'm concerned. Maybe it's a little bit behind. But, if you just believe in your child and you stay the path and you remember they have unique abilities in their own timeline and, right, and just keep encouraging growth, progress, right, and patience, that you may be surprised over time at how fast they can get something along the way. And that's not the answer for everybody because everybody's got a unique situation. Only you know your kids as good as you do. But I just wanted to put that out there because on the reading subject, I just noticed this with Ocean at 10, which is wild. And, I think it's good for me to remember that as a dad because sometimes I could get frustrated. Like, what am I doing wrong? How am I not serving my child? Are they in the wrong school? Am I not whatever failing him in some way? And then you have to remember sometimes it's just like their timeline.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think we've been really working with just progress over perfection. They just need to keep moving forward,
and also having a toleration for failure is not the word, but just for frustration. Like learning how to be with frustration.
That's right.
If Jax is attempting to do something and he gets so frustrated, his precious little Virgo heart, he will literally rip up. If he messes up something he's drawing and he doesn't like the way he does it, he just gets so frustrated. He'll rip it up. He'll throw it in the other way. And so it's just, we're really working with him in that and just teaching him that it's okay. And I'll show him different ways you made that letter a D. I'm going to show you how to make it a B. And so just getting really creative with him and celebrating the quote unquote mistakes because you can always work with the mistakes.
Knowing you two, I think your kids hit the lottery. Having you as parents, like they really did. I hope they hear that one day when they listen to the show. I'm going to show this picture, by the way, for people who may be watching on YouTube. There is the family. By the way, and for anybody just listening, you guys are dressed up in shark.
Baby shark was a big theme.
It was a shark family.
Oh my God. All of you, the smiles you have, the joy, like, and I said this prior to hitting record, but like this picture is all in, your family is all in. And it seems like how you do everything in life.
Thanks for listening today, fellas. If you got value from this episode, I ask that you take 1 second right now and you share this with another dad in your life that you respect, that you know is committed to becoming a better man, family man, and businessman. And on that note, I want to honor you for choosing growth. Your family will thank you years from now for all the effort that you're putting in to learn the strategies so you can show up more fully for them today. Take care.